We're at the 90th annual Arkansas Farm Bureau State Convention. We don't really know what we're doing, but we're live, and we're bringing you the latest edition of the Arkansas AgCast, which starts right now.
You're listening to the Arkansas AgCast, where we discuss the latest news, trends, and issues impacting Arkansas farmers and ranchers. Our show is brought to you by the Arkansas Farm Bureau Federation and hosted by Jason Brown and John Nickman.
Oh, my goodness.
I'm sitting next to a bunch of goons.
You are.
We don't know what we're doing,
Matthew
apparently.
said, we don't know what we're doing. What are you talking about? What I was referring to is what you didn't see on camera. The fact that I totally just messed up the intro.
I think
right
we all
before
three
we
forgot where we were.
hit record.
Yeah.
Well, I think not only
And what
that,
we were doing.
That's what we forgot how to put this show on for a second. Which
Yeah.
is like, that's the problem when you do something every week. It's like you give us a week off and we'll go and forget everything.
I've had
we're
2
supposed
weeks
to be doing.
off.
2 weeks.
Have we-
off. My goodness.
Remember,
Did we
I wasn't able to.
Yeah, he
Oh,
was-
that's right.
gone.
We did that
Yeah.
deep dive
Uh,
with
was-
Jared Garrett.
A little under the weather.
Yeah.
But you're back on top now,
Yeah,
aren't
yeah.
you?
My radio my podcast voice is back.
Your radio voice.
And I'm
Yeah.
nice to be back.
Yeah, well, this morning, so John, you did an excellent job, I should say.
Thank you.
Interview on KTHV's The Vine. But what was funny is they were like, oh, okay, so we've got this guy, John McMahon, first. They're going through, doing TV
Yeah,
producer
yeah,
stuff.
yeah,
And
yeah.
I was like, oh, yeah, you'll know him when he shows up. He's got the good hair and a really nice-looking beard. They're like, oh, he was with us last year, wasn't he? I was like, yes, he was.
You're
You know?
making
Yeah, that's
you're making
me.
a name for yourself. Out
Yeah,
there,
People
John.
know me now.
he's-
I am famous.
You are. You are.
And Matthew, you are very lucky to be sitting at this table with someone like
Yeah.
me.
usually that just means you get a lot more work and don't get a lot more pay. So
Now,
I'm not
exactly.
envious.
That's exactly what that
Listen,
means.
you've hit a sore spot with him because he talks about this all the time. This podcast is nowhere in my job description.
Yeah,
That's
this
what he
is
likes to say.
Other
duties
duty-
as assigned.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And those
no.
other duties don't pay more. So.
Yeah,
they
no,
don't.
he
That's
he
just-
knows it. He knows it. But-
Yeah, yes. Kind of like how I was asked if I'd be on the radio this morning, and that was a week ago. And
Uh-huh.
then I said yes, and then yesterday I was told it would be at 6:30 this morning. So
Well, somebody had to draw the short straw.
other duties as assigned.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I know I'm glad. So at this point, you're on. I mean, you've done so many interviews. You probably lost count today. Radio interviews. You did a couple TV interviews. You're doing this show. We're going to interview someone for this show here in a few minutes.
A lot of talking.
A lot of talking today. But, I'm glad that you're here to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm sure everybody else is. Especially for a guy who just stopped paying people to ask for his autograph.
Yeah.
Speaking of that,
Yeah.
so last night as we were walking into the foundation dinner, a lady again. I'm not Bill Clinton. I can't remember names.
Yeah.
She was like, "Are you John McMahon?" Just as I was walking by her, I turned around. I was like, "Yeah." She's listening right now. I really, really appreciate it. I'm not trying to make a joke about it.
Yeah, no, I know.
And she was like, "Are you John McMahon of the podcast?" I was like,
Hey.
"Yes, ma'am." Are you a listener? I listen to you and Jason every morning while I'm running before work. I'm an insurance agent with Farm Bureau, and I was like, "Wow, thank you."
What was her name?
I just told you I don't remember her
Oh,
name.
my
Oh,
gosh.
John.
I did not miss that.
John.
Ma'am, run faster. Okay? Listen. Hey, let's pick up the pace a little bit. We got let's see if we can get a
Yeah.
PR this
You're-
morning.
yeah, you're doing
if
good work.
If you're listening, I really, really appreciate it, and I apologize I don't remember your name. And it's just awesome to hear every once in a while somebody actually listens to our show.
I know. I will say, when THV, I believe it was Ashley King who was interviewing you earlier this morning, she said, "Hey, by the way, don't you guys have got a podcast? Tell us a little bit about that."
Yeah.
And you got to promote the Arkansas AgCast
Yeah.
on there this morning.
Now,
so.
the lady I talked to last night, she did say something that I should pass on to you all in the PR department.
Oh,
She said that
how's
we do not push and market our podcast enough. She said there's not enough people out there that know about
That
the
know
podcast
about it.
that should know
Okay.
about it.
Well, listen, that one way that we're going to start doing that is
We
right
got
here.
stickers.
We got stickers made just for convention.
Yep.
Yep.
So we've, of course, if you're listening to this, we'll be long gone from this table. But you know what? As we go out and we've got a couple of live shows that we're going to be doing coming up. I know in the new year.
Few months.
We'll keep some of these on us in our bags. So if you see us out and about, in the
ask
next
for a sticker.
month or two, ask for a sticker, and
John
we'd be
will
happy
sign
to
it for a
oblige.
fee.
Yeah.
John will sign.
Oh,
it.
where I was going with that, yeah, she asked me if I would give her or sign my autograph, and I was like, "Well, it's going to cost you $10."
Hey, that's better than where you used to be, where you would have paid her $10.
You know,
Yeah.
So
you gotta move up in the world.
So we are in the midst of the largest trade show in the 90-year history of Arkansas Farm Bureau annual convention. And I'm going to tell you, it's amazing.
It's impressive.
As you're watching this, you're seeing us on a stage and a backdrop behind us.
Yeah.
But what we are seeing is every square inch of this convention hall taken up by trade show.
Look.
Over 180 booths and exhibits, I believe, on display
Yeah.
here. When you count the farmers market, the ag mechanics show, all the things.
Yeah, there's
like
not
that.
another wall they can open.
No.
No.
We have taken up all of the space.
At this point, we're moving outside if we
Yeah.
if we need to get something
You
else
know,
in here.
we have the biggest ag mex show in the state. That's pretty impressive with a lot of 4-H and FFA kids, you know, showing off stuff they've worked on.
Yep.
The farmers market, I mean, good luck finding a bigger farmers market in December. You won't.
No.
I'll just promise you that.
Nope.
We have someone live painting over here. We have someone doing caricatures. We have
Coffee.
Coffee.
Lots and lots of coffee.
Lots of
There is
coffee.
a lot of coffee. We should go get a caricature done.
We should.
Yeah,
think
that
we
could
should
be
do
that
that.
could be a new logo. We could, you know.
Oh, I like that a lot. Yeah.
I will say I've seen she is very good at her job, and you know caricatures never make someone feel good when they see it. So she's incredible.
I've
But-
had a couple done in my life
I-
at different amusement parks.
I'm
and
sorry, I don't
whatnot.
like that. Will you please redraw that?
Yeah.
Sorry, you
My
made-
teeth are too big.
you made
Well,
my
have you
forehead
ever
too
seen
big.
a caricature before? Because that's kind of how it
have
goes.
you ever looked
lady.
in the mirror before?
Yeah.
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 But incredible stuff, you know, and that's just the trade show. That's hardly even a third of what's actually happening here.
Yeah, and you know everything's like you were saying earlier has been expanded. You know every aspect of it. To our left, or I guess in the video, it kind of looks to our right. We've got two semi trucks here going through DOT regulations. It's like a little workshop here in the trade show, and then the farmers markets
Yeah.
went from 30 to 40
Yeah.
vendors, and it's even organized a little bit better. I think it's presented better. And,
Oh, I love how it looks over
and
there.
I think the store has
my
surpassed
gosh.
what they expected they were going to sell with all the
Yeah.
clothing.
I'm looking at these vintage camo
Hoodies.
Farm Bureau
Yeah.
hoodies, the blue vests over there.
Yeah.
There's, gosh, all the hats. They've got stickers for sale. I
Yeah.
took some of ours
Yeah.
over there. I said, I know your stickers are $1. These are $5.
And we'll sign them if they want
Yeah,
to
they
charge
thought that
or
was
pay a little
funny. And then
more.
I said, no, really, I am going to leave these over here, but you don't sell these. These are for giveaway.
Yeah.
And they're like, they didn't like that because it was kind of competition of what they had over there. But no, I mean, it's great. Listen, Birdie, our Golden Doodle's birthday is tomorrow.
Oh, happy birthday,
She
Birdie.
turns 4. So I went over to the farmer's market and picked up a couple of pup donuts.
Did you go
Yeah.
to the dog treat lady?
Bacon donuts.
Yeah.
Ooh, bacon,
I got-
bacon donuts.
I got
take home.
Samwise a bandana.
Oh yeah,
Did
yeah,
you
yeah,
really?
yeah. We
Yeah.
got dog bandanas over there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
lots of stuff. There's people. There's a whole drone thing going on over there where they got all these drones set up that are spray drones, and you can just
yeah.
learn about
I've
them.
seen a bunch of people driving what looks like remote control robots underwater.
Oh, that's
the
over at Extension, yeah.
Yeah.
booth.
U of A.
I don't even know what that's about, but man, that looked cool.
Yeah.
I think they filmed a show here today.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they filmed their webinar.
Dr. Anderson did his little podcast, I think, with Jared and somebody else.
Yeah.
Jared Yates.
I saw Dan Wright
Dan?
posted up over there
That,
too.
that would be a good guess too.
Yeah.
So there's just so much going on here that is, I mean, to take advantage of. Hopefully you're here. Obviously, if you're listening to this, it's likely we've wrapped up because the trade show ends today
Yeah.
at 5:00. But what you should take away is I'm not going to miss next year.
Oh.
Yeah.
I'm going to be a part of this. I want to be a part of that next year.
Yeah.
I've been with Farm Bureau for 6 years, and this is by far the best. And I feel like it's just been a slow rise. You know, we're every year it's getting a little bit better. We're figuring out new ways to make this a fun event. You know, it's been a great time, and I think that if you're not here right now, you know, you need to look ahead. Get us on your schedule.
You know, and I'm sure the attendees can feel it and see how much bigger it is, but like as an employee and the little bit extra work, or the little bit extra that it's grown, and the amount of work that goes into that little bit, that extra inch or extra foot. So it kind of gives me a lot of respect for a national convention like Commodity Classic. You know what I mean? We're at a very, very big size here. And we're offering a lot too, though, and I think we're doing it very efficiently too.
So we officially called this the largest agriculture trade show in the state of Arkansas, leading up to this. And I'm telling you, now that I'm in the room, in the building with this event, I'm telling you that's 100% fact.
Yeah.
I have never seen anything at this scale in the state of Arkansas before. So that's fascinating. But it's not all trade show. We've had great workshops going on. I know you've played a big role in that. Those were all this morning. We have a keynote address this afternoon from a gentleman named Dwier Brown. And I want to bring that up for a couple of reasons. Number one, a really cool story. So Dwier actually played a key role in the film Field of Dreams, which came out in 1989.
How old were you in 89, Jason?
In 89, I was 8 years old.
Matthew?
-7.
-7.
Matthew is not with us. Were you with us, John?
I was the ripe old age of 3.
Of 3?
No. Excuse, 3.
Yeah. We call in my house we call that a 3
for a second.
In my house we call that a 3-nager.
3-nager.
It's worse than the terrible twos. I hate to
Tony
tell you
Baloney's
that.
a 2-nager.
But no, I mean, you know, he played Kevin Costner's character's father in the film.
Yeah.
I think his famous line was, "Do you want to have a catch?" Right, sort of at the end. What's interesting about him and the reason we have him here, number one, he grew up on a farm in Ohio. Number two, he bought a dairy in Iowa in the town that they filmed the movie, Field of Dreams. But number three, because of that role, I think he says it's something like 5-6 minutes that he was on camera or on film there. He has spent a lifetime hearing stories of fathers from people because of the impactful way. If you haven't seen that movie, number one, you need to go see it.
You've been under a rock.
Yeah, but that father relationship that is represented in that film is really impactful.
Yeah.
I'll just say that. And so that's kind of what brings Dwier to the convention. So we're going to talk to him here in just a few minutes.
I'm excited.
Matthew's going to step out so he can run the camera. I'm going to slide down a chair. We're going to put Dwier in the middle. I heard he has a couple of relics to bring and show us.
Cool.
Nice.
So
There's a baseball glove in there, maybe?
I hope so.
I figured he was bringing a hockey puck.
Yeah.
Maybe. Never know.
Oh boy! Oh boy! Oh boy!
But
weirder things have happened.
as we work our way to our time with Dwier here and kind of wrap up, just kind of talking to you guys about convention. Is there anything else that we forgot to mention or should mention?
Just as the monster that I've created with the farmers market, I do need to acknowledge the ag department and the Arkansas Grown and Arkansas Made division. They sponsored all those spaces for those vendors.
Wow.
They did it last year. When we told them that we wanted to add 10 more booths to it, they didn't block an eye at. They didn't even bat an eye at it.
Yeah.
So it was an extra expense or a higher sponsorship, and they went ahead and did that, and that's been a really good help to us, or great help to us, and we hope to continue this. And I really appreciate them for that. And all of our farmers market people have been great, and all of our attendees, spending their money over there and helping those people out. So.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, listen, I did have a note here. Our winter commodity meeting. So today is December 5th.
Yep.
We've still got a little bit more than a month to go, but best to add it to your calendar.
Yeah.
And I know y'all have been talking about it in your commodity division newsletters and things like that, but we will be in Little Rock on January 14th at the Embassy Suites.
That's correct.
Super, super important. One of the major topics of discussion at those meetings will be the policy that is passed here tomorrow.
Yeah. So what you're alluding at is that the commodity meetings, winter commodity meetings. Sorry, it's been a long 2 days.
It has been a long.
What we're doing tomorrow is the end of what winter commodity meetings will begin.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
So that's where that starts. And if we need your input in that room.
Yeah.
And whatever commodity you're involved in.
Yeah.
And that's how that policy gets developed, or that's the foundational groundwork beginning of it all.
Yeah, I mean that's the beginning of how we can work for you as a farmer, and so make the time for it. I know it's tough sometimes to get to Little Rock, but it's important to have your voice heard, and it's important that this is how we can go to work for you.
Yeah.
So.
Well, look, we haven't talked food, so I feel like I need to at least acknowledge food in town before we get Dwier over here.
I haven't eaten all day.
I haven't either. I'm starving right now. But Matthew and I are headed with the PR team to Grateful Head Pizza in town tonight.
That sounds nice.
Do you have dinner plans?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, I was going to invite you to join us.
I was wondering if you
are you.
just
Well, that's kind of where I was headed. A
be.
public invite, so that when people hear you say,
I thought you were going to be like, "Have you ever been there? Let me know."
Yeah. No, we went there last year.
Yeah, we went last year. It's good stuff. It's good
buddy.
stuff.
I would drive down from Little Rock to eat their pizza. Like
good.
It's good pizza.
Yeah, and it's good vibes. Their outdoor porch. I went recently with some of my friends, and we sat out on the porch for just like 3 or 4 hours, and it was wonderful.
We're not sitting on the porch tonight.
What do you mean?
It's going to be 30-something degrees. And
I
can't.
thought you meant like you had like a VIP room or something.
Well, you're hearing McMinn how he dodged the what dinner plans do you have question.
Yeah, I know.
He
I've
slipped
asked
right
him.
under the rug.
Yeah, so I'm not even going to ask you where you're going.
It's all right.
Who
Hey,
you're going with.
I'm going to dinner with the department that pays me.
Okay.
Okay.
Where are
That's
you
fair.
going? Do you not want to say that?
I think we're going to that bathhouse. What is that? Superior.
Oh, that'll be good.
Oh,
yeah.
man. We had lunch there.
Yeah, it's great.
Back for the Arkansas Grown
Get-
Conference earlier this year.
Get that beer cheese pretzel.
Ooh,
Get that beer cheese pretzel.
I've had 3 cheeseburgers in the last 3 days, and their cheeseburger's good, but I'm going to have to find something else in that.
Their
beer.
cheeseburger's really good, actually.
Well,
good. So
we're good and hungry. I think it's time.
Yeah, let's boot you on out of here.
All right.
And
get
then
outta
we'll get Dwier up here. We'll play the old musical chairs, make the magic of TV happen, and come back.
Yep. Sounds good.
Oh, we've swapped seats.
Yeah.
And added someone and removed someone, I guess technically. Yeah. But it's not just the 3 of us up here anymore. Whenever we record the show at live events, we sometimes like to include an interview, take advantage of, having somebody who's in attendance join us and talk on the things that are going on around us. And I'm telling you, buddy, today we have a good one.
I'm excited.
Perhaps the first star of the big screen that we've ever had on the show.
If you build it.
It is my pleasure. You got a little preview there. It is my pleasure to welcome Dwier Brown to the show. If Dwier looks and sounds familiar, that's because he played the role of John Kinsella. I have to say Kevin Costner's father in the final scene of Field of Dreams.
Welcome, Dwier.
Hey, it's great to be here.
Yeah.
Happy to have you.
Yeah, I grew up on a farm, so it's nice to be here at the at the farm convention, seeing some John Deere. We had a case tractor actually, but I saw one of those down there too.
Yeah, they're here too.
It's kind of like turf wars. You can't have red without the green.
Yeah, that's right.
Farm Bureau event.
Especially around Christmas.
Yeah, you got to try to
exactly.
make everybody happy.
Yep.
Well, Dwier, welcome to the show. Like we've already said, we're happy to have you. Very excited to have you here on the AgCast, especially.
Yeah.
Like Jason said, you're at the pinnacle now, of our show. You're bringing light to us.
Wow. Gee,
The
sort
attention
of
we
like
need.
Field of Dreams. I came in, the most important part.
Yeah. Hey, John, you've given a U.S. Senator permission to add this show to their resume. Are you going to offer the same advice to Dwier?
I guess sometimes my arrogance shines a little bit, and but I'm more than happy to be sitting here next to a movie star.
Well, I thought you were going to say you're going to wait until see how well I did before you let me know.
An interview. That's what it is. It's an interview, job interview.
Well, we don't take ourselves too seriously here at the AgCast, to say the least. And we've got a few questions for Dwier here today, and I'm going to start with an easy one for you. For those of you that may not be able to attend our keynote address today, tell us a little bit about yourself, Dwier, and your background, and kind of where'd you start in life?
Well, I was born in Pittsburgh, and but I was raised mostly on a farm. When I was 9 years old, my dad decided that he wanted to move us from our pleasant little suburban lifestyle to a 52-acre farm in the middle of nowhere in northeast Ohio. And he found this acreage, and the farmer, Mr. Burian, said, if you buy the farm, I'll throw in the house for free. That's how good shape the house was in, I can tell you. So when a farmer throws in a house for free, that it's probably worth every penny. Anyway, it didn't even have indoor plumbing, so I spent my first winter going out through 2 feet of snow to the outhouse, before school.
Gosh.
So it was humble beginnings for sure. But I went to school at a liberal arts school in Central Ohio called Ashland, what's Ashland University now, and then went to Chicago to kind of do improv because that's what I was into, and then got a chance to come out to L.A. and I was in the Thornbirds, which was a big miniseries at the time.
Oh, my mom loved that show.
It takes place on a farm, and I played Stewie Cleary, and I got run over by a pig. I like to say I was bored to death. Thank you very much.
Yeah. There's probably a few people here that can relate to being run over by a pig.
Well, I got ran over by a cow the other day.
Did you? Oh, yeah, your little dirty jobs.
Yeah.
Well, tell us a little bit about where you are today and how that kind of agricultural experience as a young guy in Ohio kind of helped you throughout that journey.
Yeah, well, I mean, like I said, when I was 9 years old, my dad said he was moving us out to this farm with no indoor plumbing. I was not happy about it, but looking back on it, I just learned so much. We worked hard on that house. We dug out a basement by hand with a pick and shovel, and we had a huge 2-acre garden, and I baled hay every summer and mucked stalls, and I don't know, there's something about it that just gives you a sense of you're usually working outside, which is great. I still love the outdoors, and hard work. Like as an actor, you think, well, you guys aren't working that hard, but even though it's emotional work, I really pride myself on sticking to the end and doing everything I can, and I learned that from growing up on a farm, and it served me well. When I was on the set of Field of Dreams, I met James Earl. He was James Earl Jones.
That's one of my questions.
I was like, oh gosh, I mean, there was obviously great people. I was nervous to meet Burt Lancaster, but James Earl, I was sitting there nervous, thinking, how am I going to introduce myself to him? And he just reaches over and says, "Hi, I'm Jimmy." And,
Jimmy.
Yeah. I mean, it was so nice of him because he knew that I was just quaking in my boots. And what's funny is, his voice as Darth Vader is so impressive.
Yeah.
But when you're sitting next to him and you hear that voice, you know that there's no special effects or anything. You are hearing
it's
it.
Authentic.
And,
really?
We were at this makeup table, and I swear the makeup was like vibrating on the table. It was so impressive. Anyway, I was talking to him, and he said something to me that I wrote down because I thought it was so poignant. He said, "I think the extent to which I have any balance at all, any mental balance, is because of being a farm kid and being raised in those isolated rural areas."
Really?
Wow.
And we kind of bonded over the fact that he had grown up on a farm in Mississippi and me in Ohio, and I think that I would say the same thing, that there's just something, when you weather what you weather as a farmer, literally the weather, it really helps you to realize, especially in a roller coaster business like the movie business is, that the sun's going to come up the next day, and whatever happened today is going to be gone, and you get a fresh start, and that was really important to me, because I had, as much as I had a lot of triumphs, I also had a lot of setbacks on the way.
Yeah, it could always be worse.
You
know what I mean?
Yeah, that's absolutely true. I mean, as funny as that sounds, it absolutely can be a balm when you're down.
Yeah, I mean, that's fascinating. a fascinating perspective, I guess, to hear. Not only from yourself, but from someone like James Earl Jones in the impact. And I think farmers who are with us today and who will listen to this podcast can absolutely reflect on that and see some of themselves
absolutely
in that. I'm gonna jump ahead a little bit, and I know you've talked about this a little bit already. But how did you? So obviously, growing up on that farm and in the background that you had, how did you get from the farm to the stage and screen, so to speak? And what are some of the roles that you've been involved in over the years?
Well, you know what was interesting about growing up on this farm? There was two things that my parents let us get out of farm work for. One of them was playing sports. So
sure.
My brother and I played sports year round, much as we could. Of course, that was what everybody did at the time too.
Yeah.
But and the other was doing plays. So I got in as many plays as I could as well.
That's funny.
And it was just something I did for fun. Sometimes growing up on a farm, my parents were pretty stoic. I had a lot of feelings as a teenager, as I think a lot of us do, and there was no place to express them. I'd always be told, hey, don't cry, or I'll give you something to cry about. Those kind of things. So the theater was a release for me to help me kind of deal with some of those feelings that I was having. And I just kept doing it because it was so much fun for me, and to, pretend to be somebody that didn't live on a farm and, that had a big life or, was heroic in some way. It really helped me. And so I just kept doing it. And I'd been told by everybody I'd ever met that there's no way you're going to, go from being a farm boy to being a Hollywood movie star.
Mm-hmm.
So it was never, it felt like an impossible dream.
Sure.
So I just kept doing it because it was fun for me. And when I got out of college, I was looking for a job in marketing because that was the sensible thing to do.
Sure.
And I couldn't get that job because the economy was in a little bit of a downturn. So I thought, you know what? If I'm going to try acting, I might as well do it now. And I've got nobody depending on me. And so I moved to Chicago to do improv theater because I'd done some of it in college and at a few comedy clubs and stuff and loved it. So I went to Second City and started taking classes there. And anyway, it was really sort of my plan B that ended up, just kind of moving into the forefront. I got cast in a few things, and you make some money, and that leads to the next thing. And it was almost an accident, but a very happy accident on my behalf.
Yeah. Imagine if you wouldn't have listened, or you would have listened to those naysayers that said, "Well, you'll never leave the farm. You'll never leave the farm."
Yeah, it's so true. And one of the reasons I did it back then, I said, I don't want to be 50 years old and look back and regret anything. And is kind of naive as that was, it's kind of true. I've sort of recently retired from acting, and I just feel so good about having, challenged myself to do that. And beyond all the parts that I've been in, I just learned so much about myself. In order to be an actor, because you're your own instrument out there, you have to know all the ins and outs of what makes you tick and all that stuff. And that's been just very helpful to me. And you asked the other part of your question. Well, I started out, I was in the Thornbirds. I did 3 episodes of Murder, She Wrote. And,
man.
Love that show.
I did 3 episodes of ER that were the highest rated ones up until that point. And I was in To Live and Die in L.A. and The Guardian and The Cutting Edge. It's a figure skating movie. And I forget all these things. I was in House MD. And
That's what I was going to ask you. So obviously John and I can go through and say, I worked at such and such, I worked at such and such. Yeah. But as an actor and with a career as long as yours, spanning 4 decades, 4 decades?
4 decades.
I mean, how hard is it for you to do you ever have to go back and reference your own IMDb
How do you keep up with all that?
In fact, I did it this morning because I thought, they're going to ask me what I did, and I'm going to sit there with a blank look on my face because I don't know, because you are always looking for a job. That's sort of what an actor does. And, looking for a job is one of the worst things you can do in life.
Sure.
And we're doing it constantly. As soon as you finish a job, first of all, it rarely comes out right away. So you sort of forget about it and you do the next thing. Like Field of Dreams, that was a year between when we shot it and when it came out. So, you put it on the back burner. And it wasn't until I went to the cast and crew screening that I couldn't believe what we had done. This was just this small part in this pretty low-budget movie that I thought nobody was going to go see.
Yeah.
And gosh, when we were in the theater watching it, there's my face 40 feet tall. And we were all crying. And we were the ones who made the movie. You'd think
you'd
have some distance from it. But we were like, wow, this could really take off. But yeah.
Well, to that end, I mean, I'm going off script. I'm just going to tell you all right now because I've got my head's like spinning with questions, and that's just what we're going to do today. So, so to that end, I mean, did you know? This is probably one of the most overused questions in the world, but it doesn't sound like you knew you were making such an incredible film in the moment.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, it's hard to know anytime whether you're making a great movie, but Field of Dreams was definitely not one of those. I mean, there was very little to recommend it. There's no love story. There's no sex scenes. There's no violence. There's no chase scenes. It's about baseball.
That's a great point.
And farmers and ghosts. Baseball movies were a pariah back then. I mean, if Bull Durham came out the summer that we were shooting Field of Dreams, so it hadn't been successful yet. I mean, it certainly did become successful.
The Sandlot was around there too, wasn't it?
Sandlot was.
Had Major League come out?
8 Men Out. No, Major League was later.
Okay.
But anyway, baseball movies that was almost a kiss of death. So this was just such a beautiful script. I think all of us who did it were just like, it's so rare that you come across some sensitive, nice script that seems to have some meaning behind it. And I think that's why we all did it. And even Universal, when the movie was completed, they wanted to release it straight to video. That's how
really
nonplussed they were about this movie that they'd made. And this is a true story. The only reason it got a release is they were having screenings of the movie on Universal when it was almost done. And Steven Spielberg snuck into one of those screenings. Our director, Phil Robinson, didn't want him to see the movie when it wasn't completed. I mean, Steven Spielberg had just come out with Jaws and E.T. And he was, he had offices on Universal Studios, and Phil didn't want him to see his movie, in unfinished state. But he snuck in, and he loved it. And he told Universal, he said, you have to give this movie a chance, because they were going to release it straight to video. And, because
that's amazing.
Because they were appeasing Steven Spielberg, they released it. But even at that, they thought, okay, we'll just kind of brush this off and appease Steven and keep him at Universal. But they released it into 6 theaters across the whole country. 6.
Wow.
And and hoping it would just die, and then they could say, okay, we did it, we gave it a try. But what happened was people saw it and they were so touched, they would go to their friends and say, I can't tell you anything about this movie without ruining it for you, but you have to go see it. And people did. And then, a month later, they're like, okay, let's open 20 more theaters. And by the end of the year, it had run all the way from April to December. It was in like over almost 2,000 theaters in the country. And it was still running. And even that, that was a pretty good run. But to think, then 15 years later, they released it for $5. You could get the VHS at McDonald's.
Yeah. Real? Oh, I remember that. Yeah.
And it just, MLB now, almost picks it up for MLB Network every year and runs it 3 or 4 times, because they know that, it's just one of those touchstone movies that people can't ever get enough of seeing it. I see people all the time who just recite the whole movie to me. I don't even remember my lines barely, but
that's crazy
amazing
to hear that. And then what a piece of Americana it is today.
I was about to say, it's now, that film is part of American thread.
Yeah.
Really and truly.
Yeah, it just got put into the Library of Congress as classic Americana.
No way, really?
Yeah, it's
oh my
really
gosh, that's so cool.
Tribute to the whole thing. I couldn't be more surprised that I'm talking to you today about this movie I did 35 years ago.
89, right? 89
well, we shot it in 88, but it came out in 89.
89.
Yeah, okay.
That's what I meant, sorry.
Yeah.
John, you weren't with us yet, were you?
No,
you knew
I
it
was.
was coming.
I
you
was.
knew it was coming. You were
I was
with
3
us?
years old at that point.
You were.
Not today,
okay.
Dwyer, but
look, Dwyer, look
he
at
brought
this.
it up.
Look
He brought
at
it
this
up.
young
That
cat.
wasn't me.
No kidding.
But yeah, I grew up watching that movie almost weekly. Once I got to a certain, because I was a huge baseball kid at the time, and that was, and you're talking about Jimmy, what you were referring to him as.
Oh my gosh.
And he's in the Sandlot, and being a Star Wars fan, and that's, like I said, that's an epic movie, and it's crazy to hear that it almost wasn't.
Yeah,
I'd never heard
and
that.
going to
that
VHS
story
back then, straight
before.
to tape was a kiss of death for any movie.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, they just didn't get it, and it's a good little shake of my fist there. Yeah, you missed this one, but
yeah, I love hearing your perspective of all the things it had working against it, like the things that it didn't have in it. You're exactly. I mean, those are the things that make movies, and it had none of that. I mean, Costner. What had Costner done at that point? Robin Hood.
I don't know if he'd done Robin Hood.
Maybe he had not done Robin Hood.
Like I said, I
don't know.
When we were shooting in Iowa, Bull Durham came out.
So Bull Durham, obviously.
So we used to go out to bars after shooting, and it was fine. But as soon as that movie came out, we'd go to a bar, we'd be there for 15 minutes, and suddenly you'd see this kind of circle of women,
By the way, that would happen if he were here today.
That would happen.
And then we'd have to leave that bar and go someplace else or whatever.
Yeah.
And between takes, Kevin would go to his trailer with Michael Blake, and they were writing Dances with Wolves.
No.
That was the other movie I was thinking of. I couldn't think of the name.
So this is where this happened in his career. It was this little midway point that, in my mind, Bull Durham kind of made him a sex symbol and a leading man.
Sure.
And then, of course, he's done a million things since, but he'd done maybe No Way Out. And
I'm trying to find it right now.
Yeah, Dances with Wolves was a big one.
But it was a really interesting time in his career, and he was obviously when we were shooting the movie, he knew he was going to be directing Dances with Wolves, so he was watching Phil, our director, with
kind of learning on
with added
the job.
interest about okay, how do you do this thing? Because I'm going to be doing it on a big way, next summer.
Yeah, so it was the next summer, and then the summer after that was Robin Hood, and then JFK, The Bodyguard, and it just goes on from there.
On
so really, it was before any of that had come on. Well, getting us back on track, one of the things that your book, which is here in front of us, and by the way, you can snag this book on Amazon. Yep. Is that your website? Sure. I mean, you can snag the book many different places. If you're watching, by the way, we have the jersey, a jersey that has Dwier's character name. Do you want to tell us about that?
Yeah, gosh, there's so many great stories around this jersey. First of all, I'll just do a quick one.
Yeah, sure.
So, 8 Men Out, the other Shoeless Joe movie that came out, that they shot the year before Field of Dreams.
Yeah.
The uniforms that we wore in Field of Dreams had Cusack and D.B. Sweeney's name in them because they had worn them the previous year.
Oh, that's so funny.
Usually as an actor, sometimes you like to keep some of your wardrobe or something as a little memento. Well, Cusack and Sweeney were really upset that they weren't allowed to keep them because the costume company said, hey, we've got another movie shooting here next summer and it's Field of Dreams. It was actually called Shoeless Joe back then.
Yeah.
But in any case, so those same ones, I didn't get, obviously, to keep my uniform either, but I had one made because I do a lot of appearances at minor league baseball games, and when I throw out the first pitch, I mean, of course, in those days, they didn't have the name of the player on the back, but, I just reminding people because, just the name Kinsella, people, they get misty-eyed just hearing it. So, it just kind of helps me with my personal appearances. And, the other thing I haven't even gotten into, and since we're doing this ag thing, the biggest problem with this movie was the corn. We went to Iowa to shoot this, because it's supposedly, corn capital of the world practically. There was a drought in '88, and when they arrived to shoot the movie, the corn was like 3 inches tall.
Oh my gosh!
And they were freaking out because, usually, as you guys know, if in the Midwest, if the rain doesn't come until August, it's perfectly fine. It'll grow and it'll catch up and all that.
Because they don't irrigate like we do in Arkansas.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So when we got there, they were kind of helpless. They had this movie, they started shooting it, and they were waiting for this corn, and they hired a farmer named Eldon Trum, who came in and was their consultant, and he asked the local agriculture board if they could, irrigate, and so he brought out this huge Rainbird sprinkler, and they dammed up a creek that went through the farm and sprayed water all over this corn.
Wow.
Meanwhile, the production crew shot every other scene in the movie that didn't have corn, which, if you look back, there's not a whole lot of them.
Yeah.
And they also insured the corn with Lloyd's of London for $3 million in case it didn't grow. And they had to, bond the picture. And the last thing they did is they put on order 60,000 silk corn stalks from Korea that they were going to come out and jam in the ground.
Place in the ground.
Can you imagine how stupid that would have looked? So
the manpower it would have taken.
But fortunately, with all that watering and the intense drought summer heat, when they finally finished shooting every other scene, they came to shoot the corn. Well, the watering had worked too well, and the corn was now 8 feet tall. So they're trying to shoot Kevin in this shoulder-high corn when he first comes out and hears the voice for the first time. He's inspecting the corn, and he hears, "If you build it." And he can't even be seen in the corn. So they had to build this 3-foot-tall platform between the rows of corn that Kevin had to walk down so that his head was above the corn.
Oh, wow.
And in one take, he actually walked off the end of the platform and just disappeared.
Oh, my gosh.
They practically killed their lead actor because the corn grew too big.
You know why? Because they had a farmer as an agronomist, and they shoot for yield. And he's like, we're gonna have a good yield on this.
Well, then he would have been disappointed because you know what they did as soon as they got at that height? They had to plow it all under and put in a baseball field.
Sure,
sure. And then they laid down the sod on 4th of July weekend, and by the next Monday when we were there to shoot, it was dead. The sod had died in that heat, so they had to. They asked the Dodgers groundskeeper what they did with brown patches at the end of the summer, and he said, "Well, we paint it green." So they went out with Hudson sprayers on golf carts and sprayed that whole field green.
Oh,
so
that's crazy!
I challenge you guys next time you watch it. See if that field doesn't look a little too green for good.
John and I talk about a lot. We talk about our grass at home and the work that we put into that. So maybe we're picking up some tips to use at the house. I want to grab some green spray paint on the way home.
Yeah, but the shoot was just one problem after another. The dolly crane wouldn't work, and you know, once we had this green grass, Kevin and I had to walk on it and do our dialogue. Well, this stuff was dead, even though it was green, and it sounded like walking on Easter grass. We're trying to talk.
Yeah. Crunch, crunch.
So they had to put special baffles on the microphones to keep the sound from the crunchy grass.
Oh, my gosh.
I mean, it was a fiasco.
Yeah.
And to think that after all that, you know, this movie ended up, and here we are still talking about it.
All the
Mother
odds
Nature
were stacked against. Yeah.
It's hard to tame her, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, that's one thing that farmers know above all else. Well, look, we've talked a lot about Field of Dreams, but there's something that fascinates me. I mentioned the book earlier, but one of the things that I love about part of your story is you said playing that role as someone's father in that film has led to essentially a lifetime of you now being told stories of fathers, stories about fathers. I'd love if you just talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, that has been another just very unexpected thing. You know, I'd worked in Hollywood for, 6 years before then, but 40 years since, and I occasionally get recognized, but just after that movie came out, I was in a little camp store. I was out camping. I was all scruffy and smoky, and some guy kind of following me around this little corner store, and I was like, "Oh, who's this guy?"
Yeah.
He finally got the courage and comes up and says, "Hey, man, did I go to high school with you?" And I was like, "I don't think so. I went to high school in Ohio." And he's like, "Oh, hey, I know. You look like that guy from Field of Dreams." And it was the first time I ever been recognized, and I was like, "Well, actually, I am that guy from Field of Dreams."
You're in love.
And he said, "No, you're not." And I was like, "Well, yeah, I am." He said, "No, you're not." Anyway, it was just so funny. I was trying to convince him I was exactly who he thought I was.
Yeah.
But anyway, as soon as he was done, kind of being embarrassed about that, you could just see his whole face kind of, and it, like tears went down his cheeks. And he said, "I played baseball as a kid, and my dad and I, we just never got along. And, I saw that movie, and I hadn't talked to my dad in 15 years, and I just went and I grabbed him and I said, 'Dad, come with me.' And we watched that movie together, and we just decided that it was too stupid to not be talking to each other all this time." And, he was in tears, and I was in tears, and, we're in this corner store with all these fishermen and campers, and they're looking at us like we're weirdos. But
sure,
it was just one of 1,000 stories that I've heard from people of, they changed careers because of Field of Dreams, because they realized they were trying to live their dad's dream instead of their own.
Yeah.
And people there's a guy who lost his dad. He saw him the last time when he was 3 years old, when he went off to fly a mission in the Korean War and was a MIA. And because of Field of Dreams, he petitioned the Defense Department to come clean with where his dad had been killed. And
wow.
And so he started this organization and got all these other kids of missing soldiers, and that all came from this little movie that we did. And I'll tell you, that's
amazing.
That's to me just what I wanted to get into the movie business for, was to move people, to change their lives, to do things. And so to have done that with this little 6-minute part in my life is couldn't have been a better payoff for me.
Yeah.
Man, that's crazy. I mean, that's kind of what we do here at Farm Bureau too. Not to plug us in here and compare yourself, but Jason and I are here in service of others, and like my work is, right. I want my work to mean something or impact these farmers that are a member of our program or our organization. So, and I find myself, and sometimes like you said, it's like an unexpected part of what you're doing, and you've reached somebody that you didn't even. Then it changes everything, right? And that's that has impact on you too, right?
Yeah. Well, what's a lot of people don't know is when I got the role in Field of Dreams, and I was heading to Iowa, and whenever I got a job in the Midwest shooting something, I would stop and see my parents back on the farm.
Makes sense.
Yeah, and so I go home, and I fly in that night, and my dad goes to the hospital, and he dies that night.
Oh my gosh!
And he was unexpected. He hadn't been sick. He was 69 years old, 69 years old, and none of us were ready for it.
Yeah.
And so, after we consoled our mom and, buried my father, 36 days later, I go to Iowa to play a father coming out of the sun to play catch with their corn.
Oh, wow.
Play catch with their son in the corn. And it was a very interesting experience for me because I was so shocked and taken aback by this. I was worried that I'd just bawl my way through the scene. I wouldn't be able to do it.
I can't imagine. Yeah.
And what ended up happening was that my dad had a pretty rough life. His dad was very difficult, withheld love from him, and I didn't know that until I had to kind of pull it, pry it out of him. And he'd been in World War II. He'd been through the Depression. There was something about when he died that it felt like, as much as I missed him, he was freed from this very difficult life that he had gone. And
sure.
When I was shooting the movie in that cornfield, I felt his presence there with all the other ghost players, that were just, actors or minor league players playing these guys. But it was just so amazing to me to think that now I look back and that movie was sort of the last time I was with my dad.
With your dad, wow.
And it's so neat that that's, on film. And, I have my baseball mitt here for those of you who are watching it. It's an old split-fingered glove from the 30s that my grandfather gave to my dad, and my brother and I, he taught my brother and I to play catch with it. And I took it with me to Iowa in hopes that I could get it in the movie as kind of an homage to him. And, of course, I played a catcher, so the props department gave me a catcher's mitt.
Yeah.
But I still take it with me wherever I go because, that's my connection with my dad. It's as close as you can get to shaking hands with him now is putting that mitt on your hand. And, it just means a lot to me. And the fact that people come up to me and I'm the face that they see in that movie when they're thinking about their dads. So when they see me, I'm their surrogate dad for that moment, And I take that seriously, I think, because of the loss of my dad. And so I really just try to be there for people. And, I've had some really great hugs and hopefully, maybe had some healing moments with people who, sometimes they had a terrible relationship with their dad. That doesn't mean they wouldn't want a second chance. That's to me what's amazing about this movie. Whether you had a great relationship or whether you had a terrible relationship, you either want to have more of it or you want to fix it. And I try to, be that surrogate dad. It's a poor excuse for their real dad, but it's a role I've been thrust into. I'm like a traveling priest hearing confessions, and it's really meant a lot to me.
Yeah. That's incredible. I just. This is not the first interview that we've done today together, and to have seen this glove, when you told me it was your dad's, I'll be really honest with you. I was like, oh, yeah, that's probably something that makes a lot of sense to say that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and I picked it up and held it, and that's incredible to know that this was your dad's glove that your grandfather had given to him, and it still plays a part of your life. And I think, if I may say so, I think that's just a symbol, a physical example of the power that this film and your role in that film has had, the impact on people throughout generations. My dad doesn't know that I'm doing this interview, but you better believe I'm going to call him when I get done here and talk to him about this.
Yeah,
and he'll be over the moon, you know?
A lot of people call their dads after they talk with me, and I love that, that's what I would like to do. I never got to watch this movie with my dad, and so other people get to do that. I live vicariously through them.
Yeah, well, and I will say, you hit me hard, and I'm gonna expose myself here a little bit. But when you walked up to me and we introduced ourselves physically for the first time, you said to me, your line from the movie. You said you want to have a catch, and it took me back. I couldn't speak for 5 seconds. Like, you stopped me in my tracks, and I was just like, wow. I don't know. It's just really. You went into that movie to do a job like we do every day, and you came out with a responsibility. Is that fair to say? I mean,
what's interesting, when I think back when I had this audition, and I probably auditioned against 300 other guys, I remember saying to myself, "Oh man, I wish there was a bigger part in this movie," because I'd read the book Shoeless Joe that it's based on, and I just thought, "Oh man, it's so small." And also I have to say the book was different than the movie. In the book, the father appears in the first chapter, and they kind of have a long a continuing conversation. But I thank Phil Robinson, who adapted the book to the screenplay, and the director. He put me at the end, which just made that impact so much more. Even W.P. Kinsella, who wrote Shoeless Joe, said, "Oh, that was better. That was a better way to have that happen." And as a result, it's just thrust me into this situation to think that even me, I wanted a different part, and then I got this part, and then my father died, and then we shot this movie, and then since then it's just been like a line of fathers and sons and daughters, all who just want to tell me their story.
Yeah.
That's the thing. When my dad died, I wanted the world to stop because this man was, he raised us. He was this icon in my mind, but world doesn't work that way.
No.
Somebody dies and the next day you're doing something else, and so this little thing is my version of the world stopping a little bit when somebody comes up to me and I can see in their eyes that they have a story to tell me or whatever, and I try to take my time and really hear them, because I know that some stories that I hear, I swear I'm probably the only person who's ever heard them, that they're too vulnerable to tell to their own families. And I hear these amazing stories, and I cherish them all.
Well, Dwier, I know we're getting up on lunch, right?
Yeah.
And then you've got to go speak. And I don't mean to change the tone here, but we always end in a fun question here on the show.
Okay.
And we keep it from our guest, so it stays fun. But I'm sure you're aware that since the film, a real Field of Dreams has been built by the MLB, right? So pro games are played there and so on. I'm just kind of curious, have you been there and have you seen a game? Have you seen the players that have played on that field? And what's that feeling like if you have, being there in the movie and then actually seeing the real thing now?
Yeah. It's been amazing. Yes, I've been to both games, and to be honest, I was a little leery of MLB coming into that beautiful place, because the field is still there. For any of you who don't know that, it's still there, and it's so amazing. I recommend anybody go see it. There's nothing to do there, but it is just the most beautiful little place. So I was worried MLB can pretty much ruin anything, in my opinion. So I was sure that the stadium was going to be, Disneyland. But they did a beautiful job. They used old barn siding. They had that hand-operated scoreboard.
Yeah.
And, the way that the corn is even kind of banked outside the home run fence. I mean, it was so much fun to watch those guys hit home runs into the corn. I don't know. There's something just magical about that. And so I was just very impressed with what they did. And the MLB has said that they'd like to put in a permanent field there, which they're starting work on. And I bought an old dairy in Dyersville, Iowa, in the town where we shot the movie, and refurbished it and put in a little museum, the Baseball Hall of Dreams, for a lot of those players that maybe didn't make it to the Hall of Fame, but did these amazing things. People had more struggles to get into the big leagues than a lot of other people with, disabled people and minorities. Anyway, the field was pretty amazing, and I look forward to them playing games there again, because maybe that first game between the Yankees and the White Sox was just a barn burner, so to speak.
Sure, yeah.
And just an amazing finish.
Yeah. Well, listen, I've got one last thing. Last night I was doing some research before this interview, and I came across an article that was written in July of 2023 in something called Belt Magazine. It was written by a gentleman named Ed Breen. there's no reason why you would have read this, but this story stopped me in my tracks. So Ed Breen is a journalist, right? So he goes out to the real Field of Dreams just to see it, to see it and write about it. That's all he's doing. And he's kind of describing the scene. He's talking about Kinsella's daughter had tumbled, putting into motion so many things that could not be retrieved. All these things are in their place. He talks about the distance down the left field line, the right field line, the center line. He says it was then, just as each vignette was playing out on those few acres in Iowa, that a fellow emerged from the cornrows. So he's talking about something he's seen in real life while he's there. He says, recall how the players came forth in the movie and how the flesh and blood Yankees and White Sox came from the distance that night in August of 21. So it was with this fellow. He's saying he came out. He said it was exactly from there that he had come on this autumn afternoon. He strode across the outfield grass, following the contour of the field. He was clad in blue jeans, a Cubs cap, pullover black golf shirt, and boots of a working man. 50, maybe 55, no more than that. A few extra pounds, but muscular arms. He paused, settled in at the top row of the vacant bleachers for just a few moments to consider all this and what he might do. As he approached, I saw a fielder's glove on his left hand and another folded and tucked under his arm. He has come here, he later tells me, from Northern Virginia. A sad irony here, we didn't exchange names. He was on a bucket list mission, and I was dumbfounded, okay? I'm getting to the point here. The field, this experience had been on his mind for a very long time. He quotes, "Will you play catch with me?" He asks, while he's trotting the bases. Wow. This stranger, he's winded, he says. "Sure." We meet about halfway between first and second base. He tosses me the glove from beneath his arm. "That's important," he says, "of the glove. That's my dad's glove. Wow. He's gone now. I put on dad's glove and pound my fist in the pocket because that's what you do. Lost him before we had a chance to get here," the man says to him. "We tossed the ball back and forth. Not much form and even less accuracy, but that's not important. What's important to both of us, the Virginian more than me, is that this is what Kinsella's story is all about." Dude, I came to tears in my hotel room last night reading that. Yeah. And there's more. This is a full article. I won't go into that. But is that an incredible? This man traveled to this field with his dad's glove, much exactly what Dwier's talking to us about, and asked a stranger to play catch with him with his dad.
You got to know he's not the first either, you know?
No, there's no way he's the first.
Yeah, it is kind of amazing. There's a kind of a unspoken rule about that field. I've been there several times, and sometimes I just sit on the bleachers and watch the people having a catch with their sons or whatever. And it's sort of known that you have to invite whoever's there to be in your game. Even if you've brought guys and you sort of want to have a little scrimmage.
Yeah. Oh, really?
If somebody else shows up, you have to invite him to play, and it's respected. And
wow.
And so I was sitting there watching, and I happened to figure out that there was there was probably 20 Latter-day Saints ministers who were having a convention in Dubuque, and they came out there, and they were all playing. And they said, "Hey, dude, you want to play?" You know?
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh, I don't know. I'm just going to watch you guys." He said, "Come on out." So I played these guys, and we had a little softball game, and they had no idea who I was.
Yeah.
So, every time we went back to the dugout, they were kind of looking at me a little more strange. And by the end of it, after the whole game was over and those guys were getting ready to leave, he said, "You look familiar, man. You look like one of the players." And when I told him who I was, they were just dumbfounded.
Oh, I bet.
And it was great for me because I got to play with this anonymity. I was just some guy as far as they were concerned.
Sure.
But the childlike nature that brings out of people, these LDS ministers who were there in this very official capacity, turned into 10-year-old kids on the field.
Oh, yeah.
It was just an amazing experience. And that's not the only one. Every time I'm there, there's some magical thing that happens.
Wow. That's incredible. Well, listen, we've kept you over time. You've been more than generous with your time. I can't wait to hear your keynote this afternoon. If you're hearing this or watching this, he's already given it, and I can almost guarantee you it was great.
Well,
just based on this conversation today, wow. I mean, I'm predicting the future, but Dwier, thanks so much for being with us today.
It's been a pleasure.
An
unexpected story there. I wasn't prepared for that.
I was not either.
I'll end up with you guys. You want to have a catch?
Yeah, oh, man, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. John, that was an incredible conversation.
I didn't expect that to be
take that turn.
Yeah.
I
was excited, but I wasn't prepared.
We had asked him for 20 minutes. I think we spent double that.
Yeah.
So, gosh.
It was a great conversation.
A great conversation. Excellent. Well, listen, we can't keep it going. We got to end somewhere. So that wraps up the news for this week. Thanks for following along with the Arkansas AgCast. We're grateful for you taking the time to watch and listen.
Absolutely. Remember, you can catch new episodes of the show every Thursday afternoon. Find video episodes on Facebook and YouTube. Listen to the audio version wherever you listen to podcasts.
Make sure to subscribe, leave us a review when you have a few extra minutes, and apparently tell somebody else about the show. The Arkansas AgCast is brought to you by the Arkansas Farm Bureau. I'm Jason Brown.
And I'm John McMinn.
And I'm Matthew Magdefro.
Yeah, there you go. And we'll see you next week.
Bye-bye.